Yes, this gemstone is not a piece of rough, or is it? This Swiss Blue Topaz is mostly round and was commercially cut, and it weighs in at 31 carats. I decided to test out a theory I had and to buy some already cut topaz to work with. The reason is that topaz is one of those few stones where, for some reason that I don't understand, the cut stone prices are not much different than rough prices. Not sure why. Maybe because of the abundance of large pieces of topaz rough that are commercially cut at very low prices? I don't know. So in this video we are going to be mythbusters, and the myth we are testing out is that it is always cheaper to buy rough and cut it than to buy an already cut gemstone and recut it. So I searched the Tucson shows and found a dealer who had several tables of nothing but blue topaz. He had sky blue, which looks like the sky on a cloudless day, Swiss blue, which looks like the clear blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea, and he had London blue, which is a darker blue. To me, and more importantly to BOPIE, the Swiss blue color is the most desirable. This is another reason why I wanted to buy a commercially cut topaz to recut, because I could already be certain of the color, and the two commercially cut gemstones that I bought were a killer color of Swiss blue. The design I am going to cut is a star. It's called the Star 96. BOPIE has a special piece of jewelry in mind, either this year or next year, and she wants to see what kind of a star I can cut. So this is a prototype cut for BOPIE. I'm not sure the size BOPIE will need for her special project, so I'll just cut big. It's always my favorite size for gemstones. It's kind of like asking that very special lady in your life about her sizes. She's likely to tell you, when it comes to dresses, I'm a small. When it comes to gemstones, I'm an extra large. There were some other advantages to buying a commercially cut gemstone to recut, besides already knowing the color of the stone. For one thing, I know I won't have a problem with cleavage in an already cut stone. So I won't have to worry about orienting the gemstone to avoid that perfect cleavage plane that topaz has, which causes major problems in polishing. Also, I know I won't have to face any surprise inclusions or fractures with my already cut gemstone, because I can carefully examine it with no problems. It is much harder to examine rough than a cut and polished gemstone. So yes, I'm cheating in cutting this gemstone, but maybe that's the best way to go when it comes to blue topaz in the current market. Topaz is found in many locations around the globe, with Brazil being currently the world's most important source for topaz. For other colors of topaz, almost all of the world's fine quality imperial topaz comes from Brazil. Additionally, Brazil has been the best source for yellow, orange, pink, and red topaz for decades. When you talk about blue topaz, Brazil is also the leading producer of colorless topaz, much of which is heat-treated and irradiated to produce the colors of Swiss and London blue. Other countries that produce topaz include Pakistan, which has some very nice pink, red, and violet topaz, India, and Sri Lanka, which besides Brazil is a major source of colorless topaz. Topaz is also found in the USA, Mexico, Australia, Madagascar, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Nigeria, Russia, and Myanmar. Until the 1970s, jewelry stores generally sold yellow, orange, and brown topaz. However, the blue color of topaz started finding its way into the market around that time, and today it is the most common color of topaz gemstones being sold. Okay, we've let the super glue set overnight. Now we'll remove it from our transfer jig. Now we want to examine our Swiss Topaz. That way we've got it on the dop, and what I'm looking at is the girdle. You can see it's not even, not evenly cut. You can see the facets were not, there's not, it should be a kind of a point of the bottom part of a diamond shape just touching the girdle to set the girdle width, and that's not what we have here. This is a commercial cut stone. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal. This is what you buy every day in the jewelry stores in the mall. This is normal, but not that good of a cut. And the first tier, second tier. Then as you go up, even though this is a round, I mean, you see it's not a point. It didn't go to a kind of a point at the top. It's kind of the way you would do an oval. Should be even all the way on all sides, all the way, a nice round shape in the bottom leading to a point. And you can see that first row of facets right here, this one, it should go down to a point and just touch the girdle if it was properly cut, but it doesn't. They're all, look at that girdle there, it goes kind of up. The next row, there's some scratches on that one there. This side and this side are not the same angles overall. Now if you look down the keel of this one, it's kind of ovalish. This is commercial cut. This is the standard for many jewelry stores in the mall. This is what you're going to get. This is what okay looks like. Okay, I've used the 360 grit topper, just a Chinese disposable topper, 360 diamond grit, and I've cut the girdle, outline of the girdle, preformed it, so now we have the preform of our star, and we'll come along from there. Alright, I've started cutting instruction number 1 on the pavilion, which is going to bring this facet down and set our, level up our girdle. So I'm sorry to do this to you, but we're going to have to do a little bit of math, and the reason is we've got to make sure that we have enough space below where we set our girdle for the crown or upper half of our stone. So what you need to find out is you need to know the width of the stone, and you need to know from the instructions that Robert Long created what the crown to width ratio is, the C to W. And you find the C to W on your instructions on the gem faceting diagram itself. The C to W ratio is 0.183. So then what you do is you simply measure the size of the stone. 16.8 is about right. Again, about as close as fine for now. So 16.8 millimeters, and you don't need anything more than your cell phone calculator. So you take 16.8 millimeters and you multiply it by the C to W ratio that's given to you in the instructions. So 16.8 times 0.183 gives you 3.0744 or 3.07 millimeters. That's what you need for your crown. So you just set your protractor, your gauge to close enough, 3.10, And I will say that this gauge that I got from iGaging is wonderful, this digital caliper. I would highly recommend it. The company stands behind it, and if you ever have a problem, you give them a call. It's under warranty. They'll take it back. I had a problem one time with this. The digital gauge was going crazy, and I called the guy up. He was great on the phone. He told me I could send it in, and he would be happy to fix it. But he said, I tell you what, if you just follow these instructions I give you over the phone, try that. I'm 99.9% sure that'll solve the problem. He says it sounds like water got into the electronics. So he had me open up the mechanism, dry out, wipe down everything where the battery goes, reassemble it, and it went right back to work. Great company, great customer support, and I found it on Amazon, and it's not expensive. So back to our 3.07 millimeters. What you do is you go to the bottom of your girdle line and see if you've got enough space for the crown, and right there we do. And we're going to end up with more space as we go around. This was just with a 360 cut, so we're okay. Now, yes, you should add for the width of your girdle, but again, I shoot for a girdle that's 0.3 millimeters to 0.5 millimeters, and guys, again, 0.3 millimeters is the width of your fingernail. It's not much. So yes, you should account for that, but at this stage we don't need to. So we know we can continue to preform our stone with the girdle right about there, and that'll give us plenty of room for what we need. Sorry for the math. Okay, we finished preforming our Swiss Topaz Star 96. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of facets. That's going to be the pavilion of our star. I finished with the 360 topper. I'll go with a 600 diamond grit topper, and then I'll use the 1200 crystal light, and then see from there what we need to do, whether we go with the bat laps or with aluminum oxide might be the way to polish this, but we'll see. All right, I finished polishing the first instruction for the pavilion, which is the 5 largest facets. Now, in this case, once I set the angle, which is 52.78 degrees, I left it there and worked through all the polishing and pre-polishing bat laps. I started with the 3000, didn't change anything, went straight to the 8000 and didn't change the angle, and went to the 14,000, and then the 60,000 diamond on a bat lap. Normally I'll facet everything with the 3000, all the facets, all the instructions, then go back to the 8000, go through all the instructions, and then the 14,000, so on. But in this case, because the facets are large, I felt it would be better just to work my way through each line of instruction all the way through to polish, because sometimes when you go back to reset them, your angle's a teeny bit off and you leave a scratch, or it's, there's a scratch on the top part of the angle, but not the bottom part gets cleaned up, and that's all dealing with your angle. So that's why I chose to do it that way. And a lot of cutters go instruction line by instruction line all the way through to polish. For this design, it works well, and I would recommend it. Now I'll continue instructions 2, 3, and 4, which are the rays of the star. Okay, I finished polishing the pavilion of our star design using Swiss Topaz. Now I'll use a transfer jig and transfer it to the crown. I'll use a cone dop and super glue, and of course I'll put a piece of modeling clay at the very bottom of the dop to protect the culet of this stone. We're ready to put the stone in our Ultratech after having transferred it. so that we can cut the upper half or the crown. Now the way you align this particular cut, this star cut, is you want one of the flat girdle facets lined up at the 48 index, not the 96. At the 96 index, it's going to be the point of the star, which would be kind of hard to line up. So it's much easier to line up the flat part. So put the index at 48, and we want to line it so the flat part is there. So we simply use our flat piece of metal. Make sure the stone is touching the metal part. And when you raise the stone up, you want to see it break contact with the metal all along that line, and you see a little bit of space below the facet. And you know that you're lined up properly to make the proper cuts. We've started cutting on the first set of instructions on the crown, which tell us to cut at the 10, 48, and 86 teeth of our index. So that gives us a cut here, and these two facets up here, this one and this one. So that's also how you can see that you've properly aligned your stone into the faceting machine for the cutting of the crown. Using the 600 grit lap, I've cut all the facets once. I barely touched the mains here. They cut rather quickly, so I'm not going to go all the way down with those with the 600. I may even skip the 1200 and cut them with the 3000 the first time I cut these again. But I wanted to cut all the angles once and get an idea of how our star is going to turn out. So on the crown, there's only a total of 10 facets and a table. Of course, you can see the tables there. So 5 facets around the star and 5 facets for each of the 5 mains, and that's it, and a table. So we'll continue to cut our star design. Okay, I went ahead and cut and polished all the facets along the crown except the mains, which are going to be the points, the 5 points of the star. I went ahead and cut and polished all the other facets first, and then I'll go cut those, because those cut fast, and I wanted to save those then and do them all at once. Then we'll cut the table, and it should be it. So I'll cut the mains, the points of the star, with a 1200 crystal light with the 1200 crystal light lap, and then I'll move into the bat laps with the 3000, 8000, 14,000, and finish off with the 60,000 diamond grit on a bat lap. Okay, I finished cutting the 5 star points of our Swiss Topaz. The only thing left is to cut the table, so I'll take the DOP out of a machine and set it up to cut the table, and then we'll be done. Okay, I finished polishing the table for Swiss Blue Star 96. Didn't have to move the table much. In fact, that might be another reason why you'd want to buy commercially cut topaz, because you already have the table done. You could have got away with it if I'd have planned it to started it with the table where it was. But now I'll put the stone in acetone overnight, soak it to get the adhesive off, and then we'll weigh it. Probably measure it right now. It's going to be 15 millimeters, 15.1 millimeters, and we'll see how it turns out once it comes out of the acetone. The final stone is 14.25 carats, and the original commercial cut stone was 31 carats. So I lost a little more than half the weight by turning the original stone into this star design, which most cutters will agree is a very good result from the rough. So back to our Mythbuster question. Is it better to buy topaz rough, or is it better to buy commercially cut topaz and use it as a piece of rough or a preform? Well, a loss of 50% on a piece of rough is actually a great percentage, at least for me. So using a commercially cut gemstone as a piece of rough worked for me. Next, the cost of top color Swiss Topaz rough from my favorite rough dealers is equal to, or actually a little bit more per carat than the cost of mass-produced commercially cut Swiss Topaz finished gemstones, at least at the current market prices and with a little haggling from the gem dealers. So again, it was to my advantage to use a commercially cut stone as my rough or preform.